Hi, it's Greg Bennett here to talk with you about closing. I know you've only got about 6 weeks left till kickoff, right? And so everybody's going to be in a closing mode. And I want to share a couple of ideas with you and a brand new tool that I have created for closing. And this tool can be used in the early stages of a sales call after a first meeting when you're out exploring. Could be in a second meeting, third, where you may be right now with some of these clients, fourth meeting even. But the partnership planning page is what I'm calling it. And you're going to get a copy of this, but I'm going to walk you through using this page. And on top here, you'll see there's some space to write down objectives that the client has for looking at this partnership. A potential start date would be here. And then I have several areas here where you are able to write in like some ideas and concepts using the various inventory that you have. And I'll tell you how this all came about. I was on some sales calls this summer with some collegiate sports sellers out talking to clients, and I noticed at the end of these calls that there's this instinct that both the client has and the seller has to leave, to get out of the meeting. And we've done this great job of getting the client into a position to be looking at this, is excited about it. And I remember we're talking to a retailer, and the client said, after we talked for a while, yeah, I think I could see myself being in that 30 to 35 range as an initial, the first year. Why don't you put some things together, is what he said. So the seller sitting there says, well, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to go and put some things together. We'll get together maybe next week. And the buyer said, yeah, why don't we circle up next week? I'll take a look at it. Okay, so to me it felt just really kind of loose, way too loose. And so I said, why don't we sketch out what a deal would look like? Let's just sketch out the parameters of a deal. And so this is something we take back to our office, and we're able to take a look at the inventory that's available. But we have an idea, and you have an idea of what we're talking about. So I took a piece of paper and started sketching out the, just loose what the parameters of the deal would look like, including a budget figure, and then I had him sign it. And just said, this tells our GM and allows us, because we're under tremendous pressure right now, because so many people want in, particularly this year, that we're literally having to come first serve as we even execute some of these deals. So it got me thinking that why wouldn't we have a sheet that we could use at the end of a first meeting? Instead of making it all verbal, a seller could pull this out and say, well, this is basically what we call a partnership planning page, and allows us at the end of, say, a first, second meeting to work with you, Mr. Client, determine what is it that you want to do. I can tell you a little bit about what we would do in structuring something. We both have an understanding of the parameters we're looking at. And then there's some steps down here that we would write in here and make sure we're both on the same page as to who's doing what. So where I've put this into place, it's worked really well. And it basically just allows us to get something in writing to sketch out the parameters of a deal in talking to a client. And we both know, and it's not just a verbal back and forth, because while the iron's hot, while the client is in that mood and everybody is feeling good and excited, we have to realize that the minute we leave, that person's world comes crashing back in. All the other things that become priorities, and they forget about us, or they just write it off, or whatever it may be, and then a week goes by, and then 2 weeks go by, and we're trying to get back into that state, and the client has lost all the enthusiasm. So we have to get in the mode, whether it's first call, second call, or where you may be over the next 6 weeks in those latter stages, that just be thinking, why not now? Why not now? Why can't I take this a step further right now? Because how can I have a hot product and disappearing inventory if I can afford to wait a week or 2 weeks? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't play right. So we want to really be focused on going as far down the path as we can. And I'd like you to try using this and give me your feedback. How's it going? How's it working? Make any suggestions, because we're in the early stages of developing this and using it, and want to make sure it works for you. So good luck over the next 6 weeks.